design socks with me. My name is Gabs. I am one half of the Slip Slip Sis design team, and in this video series I am taking you along with me on my sock design journey. So part 2 will cover the cuff, the leg, and you will get to see a little oopsie that happened and kind of how I navigate this. I will tell you that it is a little bit tedious in where you get to watch me type. I am not the fastest typist in the entire world, so you can always feel free to jump forward if you don't want to watch me type, which is sometimes as thrilling as watching paint dry. But I realized that I wanted to show at least some chunks of the typing process so you can see that I go back, I edit, I change my mind, I change the phrasing of something, and it's kind of a really kind of slow process sometimes. But thank you so much for joining us. I am excited to share with you part 2.
So the next thing that I usually do is I start typing the pattern in a Google Doc, and I usually type it up super rough so that I've got my notes on how I'm knitting it. So my plan this time is to write a chunk of it, right? Correct, I mean. So write a chunk of it, do the chunk, see if it worked out, edit the chunk, and then keep going, and then write some more, knit, write, knit, write. I've done it multiple ways where I've knit the whole thing, then wrote it, or wrote the whole thing, then knit it. And I'm realizing that that doesn't always work. That doesn't work for me. So this process, I'm going to write some small chunks, knit the small chunks, then go back, edit, and then write the next part. So I'm kind of doing it in tandem. It is socks, so I'll knit one whole sock first, see how it looks, and then first thing that I'm going to do is open a Google Doc. And I'm fortunate because this isn't my first sock pattern, so I'm able to copy and paste some of the details from other sock patterns that I've done. If it's your super first time, you'll end up wanting to look at like a template of what someone else includes in their like details and information page. Everyone does it differently. There are obviously things you need like needle size, gauge, all of that, but there's also a little bit of flair and style you can add to it. So I'm going to do a screencast of me getting my Google Doc set up and kind of typing my first section of the pattern.
I like to use a Google Doc when I am writing my patterns because it allows me to restore older versions of the Google Doc if I realize I deleted something that I thought that I needed. So it kind of acts as a little backup for myself, as well as gives me the opportunity to allow someone else to edit as well. So you can see that I just copy and pasted in the details section from one of my other sock patterns. When I'm editing the details section and I know I need to come back to something later, I highlight it in bright yellow so I don't forget that I wanted to edit it later. And I am now just running through it, making sure everything is kind of the same as it usually is in a sock pattern. I will go back and edit this again once I've fully written the pattern, but this is just my first check of it. Then I start writing the cuff section. I do have jumps in this video, so you didn't have to watch me write the entire pattern. I change my mind a lot of times on if I want to abbreviate cast on or not. I realize in socks I only say it once, so for me it makes more sense just to write the words rather than abbreviate it because I'm not using that phrase again. I like to use a German twisted cast on for my socks. I find that it gives the most stretchy ankle portion of it. However, I also want to give the knitter the option to do a different one if that's not something that they enjoy using or that doesn't fit their ankle the best. For the ribbing round, I like to use a twisted rib rather than a traditional 1x1 rib. I found that a twisted rib tends to look a little bit tidier, as well as give a little bit more visual interest. You can see that I went back and added in with main color here because I realized I didn't tell the reader how I wanted them to start the pattern. So when I start writing the leg, I just start writing starting with round 1 and then continuing through it. And then I will end up going back in a little bit to edit it and usually including a setup round. But I find that it's easier for my brain just to write it out linearly and then go back and make edits afterwards. So for this pattern, you do have to switch colors. You can see that I just went back in and changed these to setup rounds, and now I'm changing the numbers to include what's actually the pattern. I always like to include for desired length of, that should say leg, which I just corrected. I like to include that the knitter can decide their desired length of leg, but I also include how I knit it for the sample. So if the knitter is wanting to create what I did exactly, there's also that note, so there is less ambiguity if they're wanting it to look like the pattern.
I finished writing up the first chunk of the pattern. You saw me make changes as I go, and I did want to leave it that way so you could see how I changed my mind about what I'm doing or how I want to say something or if it's even going to work. I'm back. So I got most of the cuff knit for the design, which is great. That was easy, went exactly according to pattern. I just started the pattern part, so I knit 2 of the rows in blue, which is my main color, and then I slip stitched a row. So I did slip 1, knit 1 for a whole row in blue, and then I knit a row in this like pinky red color, and it's not making the little teethies that I want in the pattern. So I think I have to go rip back a couple rows, I'm gonna knit 3 rows in blue instead, and then when I do my color change row, I'm gonna do a slip and a knit and a slip and a knit when I'm changing the color. So I think I need to switch up the pattern so that it creates the little teeth that I wanted. So I'm gonna rip back and I'm gonna start again. I debated not recording this, but I was like, wait, nope, it's a whole design process. I want you to see what happens when it doesn't go to plan. So I need to rip back 3 rows, and then I also need to rewrite the pattern. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it looks better next time. See, it didn't create any teeth. You can't even see the slip stitch at all. So second time try, wish me luck.
So what I needed to end up correcting for my pattern was the slip stitch rounds, that I needed to change the placement of where those were occurring. I had them occurring after the color change, but I needed them to happen simultaneously with the color change. So I was able to kind of just correct it by swapping it around. So I am on my second take of my socks now. I ripped them out, and you can see that I redid them, and they are totally coming out exactly how I imagined them now. They've got the little teeth that I want them to have for the stripes, so it adds a little bit of excitement, something for the stripes. So I guess I should hold them this way because this is how they'll look as socks. So I'm really liking how they turned out. I
I'm gonna knit probably one more stripe, maybe two more. I think I want two more of these little pink buddies. And then I'm gonna write in the heel flap and gusset. I need to add into my pattern that it needs to end on a pink stripe right before the heel flap and gusset. So that's what I'm working on for that. And then when I'm ready to do the heel flap, all of that, I will show you how I do it.